عن أمير المؤمنين أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى.
Wait.
And sincerity?
Wait. I just closed it. Wait. And sincerity in knowledge stands upon four principles, and by the way of them does the intention of the student of knowledge become actualized if he seeks it, and they are...
Okay, so now the Shaykh, when he's talking about sincerity for Allah, he applies it now a bit more practically, that okay, if you're seeking knowledge, you're learning about Islam, okay, more practically, more specifically, what are the actual intentions that you should have? Now,
Number one, removing ignorance from himself.
so the first is, you remove ignorance from yourself, right? So you yourself know what's right and wrong. That's the primary thing, the reason why you learn. So you know what's right and wrong, what's pleasing to Allah, what's displeasing to Him, and so on. Now,
By studying those things that is upon him from servitude and becoming acquainted with the goals of the commands and prohibitions.
no.
Number two, removing ignorance from the people by teaching them and guiding them to what contains rectification of the worldly life and hereafter.
So number two is, after you benefited yourself, you benefit the people, right? So a person learns and then he spreads that knowledge to others, right? That should be your intention. If you learn something, my family doesn't know this, I want to teach them. Now, benefiting others doesn't necessarily mean, right, you get a chair, you start teaching in the masjid, you start doing khutbahs. No, you learn a little bit, obviously everyone sticks to that lane, right? But everyone can do that da'wah and teaching according to that level. So you start off with your family. If you're a father, you start by teaching your wife, your kids, your other relatives. If you're in a masjid, those people that come to the masjid. If you're part of a committee of a masjid, then you have, the most responsibility of everyone, which is the responsibility of teaching the people. And you can't teach the people if you don't know anything yourself. That's why it's very important. I say this to all of the, committees that are in masajid. That what's happened is that in the 60s and 70s, because of the fact that Muslims came to this country, right, for work, and then they needed a place to pray, what happened? They built a masjid. And these are normal people because they needed a place to pray. But because they built it, legally what's happened? They've become the trustees. Which at that time fulfill the purpose. But now there's more need for masajid, and the role of the masjid is much greater. Right? It's a place where Muslims come to find their identity. It's a place where they come to learn. It's a place where they come to find righteous companionship, and so on. Right? So what's happened is, it's been people who don't know anything, they're in charge, and that's basically been passed down. Islamically, how does it work? Islamically, the Imam is the one in charge of the masjid. Right? The Prophet ﷺ was the Imam, and what he said went. Then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was the Imam, and what he said went. Then Umar, and so on. Right? And examples are many. But now, because of how masajid work, illegally and charity commission and all of that, you have now committees. And I say to all of the committee members, for you to take on that responsibility of being part of that committee and being part of decisions that affect the masjid, you have to, before you are able to give that ruling or give that the ruling of what's taking place in the masjid, you have to learn yourself. Otherwise, you're not qualified to be in that position, unless your position's got nothing to do with something Islamic and you're staying in your lane, then it's okay. Some masajid are like that. And you can see, some masajid have people that, okay, when it comes to da'wah and so on, right, that's the Imam's job, and this brother who studied, right, they're going to sort that out. When it comes to finances, then this brother. And if it works out like that, but a lot of the masajid, no, everyone just wants to speak. And these people don't have a clue about what's going on. They don't know anything about Tawheed. They don't know anything about the Sunnah. They don't know anything about manhaj. They don't know anything about anything. But what did they say? And I had this once. Right? I had this in the masjid. I was speaking to some committee members. They did a number of things, but I'll give you an example of one thing that they did. Right? They put out on social media, it's very hot like it is today, and they had a very good idea, right? Where they opened the masjid, because they had very good AC system in that masjid, and they had a fridge, I think, and they had cold water. So they put a message out: anyone who needs shelter during the day because of how hot it is, if you're homeless, non-Muslim, Muslim, and you want to come to the masjid, you're free to come into the masjid, you can drink water and so on. That, mashallah, got a lot of publicity. Good thing that they're doing. Maybe it's a good idea to implement as well, right? And then they sent out a thank you message. And in this thank you message, there were a number of mistakes. I don't want to go into it, because they might give it away, which masjid is, and so on. Some brothers, mashallah, very, you mention something, you think it's nothing, and this person's done some in-depth research and he's found out. So I'm not going to mention anything, right? But the point is, in there were mistakes. And in some of the messages were mistakes. When I say mistakes, I mean some of the mistakes were types of kufr. One was kufr al-ni'mah in that particular example. Sometimes one example that they did something is a type of shirk. It wasn't major, it was minor, shirk al-alfaz, but nonetheless it was a type of shirk. Okay? So when I brought this up to some of the committee members who are a bit older, right? What was their response? I'm telling them what this is kufr and shirk. I've not told them off, I've not shouted at them. All I've said is, instead of sending it out, doing it yourself, get checked by someone, that's it. The response I get, listen, I know how to give da'wah, I've been giving da'wah since you've been in your nappies. You're laughing, but maybe 90% of the masajid in UK are like this. Okay? And the problem is what? Not having knowledge. Not having knowledge. So if a person, and this person, he can act hard in this dunya, but in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will be dealt with. He will be dealt with. Right? So anyway, the point here is that if you are in charge of something, everyone's different. The Prophet said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. All of you are shepherds, and all of you are in charge of your flocks. Everyone's flock is different. And according to your flock, you will be judged, and you will be held to account for it. And depending upon that level, that's how much you'll be scrutinized by Allah. So if you're in charge of a masjid, for example, much more, you're going to be scrutinized than a person who's not. Right? And, by the way, I don't want anyone attacking anyone in the masjid. This is a general point, right? But even if you're a father, how can you not know anything about a religion? You send your kid, like for example, it's time for him to learn Surah Fatiha. You don't need to send him to a random person for Surah Fatiha. You can teach him Surah Fatiha, and you'll get the reward every time you recite Surah Fatiha. But maybe the problem is that the father knows he can't recite Surah Fatiha himself, so he doesn't do it. How embarrassing is that? You can't teach your own kids Surah Fatiha. Now obviously some people may be excused, they don't learn. Making a general point, how can you not teach someone how to pray and Surah Fatiha and so on? So in order for you to benefit others, you have to benefit yourself first. Make yourself well grounded in knowledge. Lay that foundation in knowledge. Right? Not through TikToks, not through Reels, not through all this online stuff, right? But through actual study, through hadith, through memorization, through understanding, through a teacher. And once that foundation is there, then you move on to the next. Then you start benefiting others. Another problem is some people jump to point number 2, making these big accounts, trying to benefit everyone. Everyone else is benefiting the one who's not the person himself. Right? So these 2 points are very, very important. Na'am. Number 3.
Number 3, giving life to knowledge and protecting it from being wasted.
Yes, giving life to knowledge. That's one of the intentions. If no one learns, then the sunnah becomes forgotten. We have something called forgotten sunnahs, right? Well, no one learns. It's not forgotten because it's lost in some cave somewhere. It's forgotten because it's in the book which is in the masjid, but instead of people opening it, you're letting it collect dust. Or you're letting it be used as a background for your lectures, because the books in the back look nice, right? So, but when everyone else, subhanAllah, look how beautiful it is. How many people are in this room right now? Imagine all of these brothers right now who are here, and then the sisters who are, and then the people who are studying online, they learn. Let's say they do this course, let's say it takes a year. And just even with that, right, they spread that knowledge. That could change the whole society. With the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just from doing one lecture, one session, once a month. So imagine he did more than that. Look at the Sahaba, look at Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, right? The Prophet sent him to Medina to teach those in Medina, right? Did he memorize every single hadith that was there? No, the hadith is still being, the Quran is still being revealed, right? But he had the foundation. So look how he benefited the people in Medina. And the next year came back and Bay'at al-Aqaba, and then after that, Prophet made hijrah to Medina. Right? Now, number 4.
Number 4, acting upon that knowledge.
Now, so your 4th intention from seeking knowledge should be what? Acting upon it. You're learning so that you can act upon it. So you've learned this, now you're going to act upon it. You learn the importance of knowledge, you're going to go seek knowledge. You learn the importance of salah, you're going to start praying your 5 daily prayers. You learn how to pray the salah like the Prophet ﷺ prayed, you're going to start praying like that, and so on. No.
Verily the Salaf, may Allah have mercy upon them, used to fear the loss of sincerity in their pursuit of knowledge, so they would be wary of claiming it sincerity, not because they never actualized it in their hearts.
So now, the Shaykh is going to mention a number of examples from the Salaf and how they give importance to their sincerity and their intentions, and how they were so fearful upon their intentions. Yeah.
Imam Ahmad was asked, have you sought knowledge for the sake of Allah? So he replied, Lillahi aziz, walakinnahu shay'un hubbiba ilayya fatalabtuhu. To say for Allah is extremely difficult, but it was something made beloved to me, so I sought it.
No. So Imam Ahmad, the first example, he was asked that, did you seek knowledge for the sake of Allah? That were you sincere? Look at his answer. His answer is from his humility. He didn't say, yeah. He said, Lillahi aziz. For Allah, this is aziz. What does aziz mean? Huh? Great. Now, aziz in Arabic has two meanings. It can mean great, right? But the other meaning is rare. Other meaning of aziz is rare. And that's why in hadith aziz, what is that? Yeah, rare, but yani, how does that apply in hadith? First, it has a hadith aziz. What does that mean? Radwan? That's gharib. Rashid? Where's my Ahlul Hadith? Go on. There's a more technical meaning to it. Go on, Abdullah.
Is it like, it's like a forgotten hadith?
La. Put your answer with Radwan's answer and you'll get closer. Go on, unique, eh? I want a number. You said 1. That's the wrong number. Give me a different number. No, that's ahad. That's the whole thing. But it's a type of ahad hadith. Not a few. Give me a number. 1. What comes after 1?
2.
Khalas, that's the answer. Right. Hadith aziz is where in every level of the hadith being narrated, only 2 narrators narrated it. Right? I'm sure most of you guys know it, maybe it just went over your head. You just forgot it. It happens. So you have only two companions who narrated a hadith, and so on, right? Now, some ulama have said that 2 is in every single level, and some have said that the lowest number has to be 2 in any of the levels. The point being, the reason it's called that is because it's very rare to actually find a hadith like that. Especially if you were to say 2 in every single level, very, very rare. In fact, you might not even find a hadith like that. Anyways, back to the point, is just explaining the meaning of the word aziz. Inshallah, you're going to remember the word aziz. It has 2 meanings in Arabic. Aziz, somebody great and respected and so on, or it can mean rare. So Imam Ahmad, when he was asked, did you seek knowledge for the sake of Allah? He says, Lillah, aziz. For Allah, rare. That's difficult for us. وَلَكِنَّهُ شَيْءٌ حُبِّبَ إِلَيَّ فَطَلَبْتُ. But it was something which I loved. I love seeking knowledge, so I sought it. That's from his humility. Rahimahullah. Because anyone who claims that, yes, I was sincere, then be fearful that person actually wasn't sincere. Person who's truly sincere will actually be fearful that was I actually sincere properly or not. Hence why, was it Ibn Abi Mulaika, what did he say? أَدْرَقْتُ ثَلَاثِينَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. I met 30 of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. All of them feared hypocrisy upon themselves. Right? So sincerity, the Salaf of very... Anyone that thinks that, yeah, I'm sincere, I'm fine, there's no problem, right? Then there's a problem. Most likely you're not sincere. But the Salaf were the opposite. They would fear for themselves, was I sincere or not? Am I a hypocrite or not? Umar radiallahu anhu came to Hudhayfa and he said, when the Prophet told you who the munafiqun were, the hypocrites were, did the Messenger of Allah mention my name as well? Am I a hypocrite as well? And who's asking? Umar radiallahu anhu. Now.
And whoever wastes sincerity has missed out on a great amount of knowledge and substantial amount of good.
No.
So it is befitting for the seeker of salvation to constantly check this foundation, sincerity in all affairs, little or large, private or public. This constant checking will lead a person to seriously remedy his intentions. Sufyan al-Thawri said, ما عالجت شيئا أشد علي علي من نيتي
علي من نيتي
علي من نيتي لأنها تتقلب علي.
So very good. The fact that there's no harakat. That's very good. No.
I never struggle to remedy anything more difficult upon me than my intention, for indeed it constantly changes upon me.
So what is Sufyan al-Thawri? Sufyan al-Thawri was known as Amir al-Mu'minin fil Hadith, the leader of the believers in Hadith in his time. And what does he say? He says, there's nothing harder that I have found that I have to rectify and cure than my intention. Because it keeps changing. It keeps changing. How much does it change? Let's read the next narration.
In fact, Sulaiman al-Hashimi said, ربما أحدث
ربما. Okay, I'll read this one. It's a bit hard. It's got no harakat at all. ربما أحدث. I'll read it slowly if anyone wants to add the harakat. ربما أحدث بحديث واحد ولي نية. ربما أحدث بحديث. Oh, it's got harakat in there. Mine doesn't have any harakat. Oh, خلاص. Go on. Which one have you got?
So should I go from the beginning?
Have you got with harakat or without?
Some or some want. Like.
You've not got this one then. Okay. Right. فإذا أتيت على بعضه تغيرت نيتي فإذا الحديث الواحد يحتاج إلى نيات. Okay, let's read the English.
Perhaps
cheat code. No.
Perhaps I narrate one hadith and I have an intention. So if I reach a portion of that hadith, my intention changes. So that then one single hadith turns out to need many intentions.
Naam. So Sufyan al-Thawri said, I need to look after my intention. It's very difficult because it keeps changing. Sulaiman al-Hashimi, he says, I narrate one hadith. I start off with an intention. I'm not even finished the hadith. The intention's changed. And then it changes again. I realize even one hadith requires a number of intentions. And I start talking, somebody walks in, right? My intention changes. I see somebody, he's smiling and I think, oh wow, look how great a speaker I am. My intention changes. And I have to constantly rectify my intention. So this issue is something very important. Rectifying our intentions and making them sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, we're going to take a break now, inshallah. I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes. However, I want you guys to revise everything we've taken so far. After 15 minutes, before we start the next principle, I'm going to test you guys, inshallah. Okay? So you've got 15 minutes, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad.